Welcome back to Echo Ridge. Today might be the episode where we get all the dupes in suits. Look at that. It rhymes. I have been a little busy coring out a lot of area here, but we still have the headache of this pond. But I've thought of a solution for it. I will deal with it later. So I'm going to drop the pond into this cavity here, which will open up all of this area, which a lot of it is going to become where we end up sending the dupes out into the world. I also have a couple of desalinators set up with these little areas where we're going to be collecting water from both the cool salt slush geyser and the saltwater geyser, because right now they're overpressured, which means we're just wasting water. That's none of the buenos. I also managed to core this area out with only, minor injuries, but now the duplicants can work in this area without fear of scaldings, and I'm slowly starting to build more 3-tile high levels, because I think this area here is going to be exclusively for, the dupes working out. Cardio is important, which means we're going to have all of this space for nothing but SPOMs. And I've gone back and forth quite a few times on what kind of SPOMs I'm going to build, and I think the old-fashioned standard SPOM is going to work for us. The reason being is because of the piping. The longer I make a SPOM, well, the more difficult it is for me to route these oxygen pipes up, which is where they're going to need to go for the massive amount of suits that we're going to be using. Before we start building all those SPOMs, I wanted to give you an update on something we've done, and that is having 2 ice droppers that drop right down onto this tile. That tile is connected with the cooling loop for the steam turbines and for our iron tile. The reason why we're doing this is, yeah, it's cooling down the cooling loop, that's not a big deal, but it's also warming up all of this ice. So when I do something insane like turn off sweep only on both of these, now the duplicates are going to get every last piece of ice that they can find on the colony and drop it off right here. Once we have the dupes and suits, we will core this whole area out. It will be another big water tank, but I want to wait until they're in suits for that because, well, there's no oxygen down there. I've also started adding a couple of oxygen diffusers around the colony for the simple reason I realized we were up to almost 170 tons of algae. I might as well get to using that. Now up here is where we have a lot of ice because this was our previous storage area. Oh, what's going on? Snecky B, you'll be okay. I told you there was only minor injuries, and as you can see, they're all doing much better now. Isn't that right? So let me let the dupes catch up for a minute, grabbing all the ice around the colony. It should only take a couple of cycles, and then we'll get to the conduct of dumping this water and starting to build SPOMs. Suppose while I do that, I can start to plan out where the SPOMs are going to sit. I have already moved the heavy watt wire connecting the 2 spines, so at a minimum, they have to be above this area. And SPOMs are 17 tiles high, so maybe right here, so I can still get to the underneath part. This will be enough for 4 or 5 SPOMs before we run into this anti-entropy thermal nullifier. I might even be able to stack some here too. Another small update I forgot to tell you about is I was able to move things around and add 2 more natural gas generators, and that's really helped the power output of the colony. In fact, this wheel here has only been used 21% of the time in the last 5 cycles. That's much improved. It also helps that we've gone through most of the back stock of the empty eco power banks. As you can see, a lot of these are not running because, well, they don't need to run. We're sitting at 46 megajoules with 387 power banks, and our food is slowly getting back up there, although I had to get more polluted oxygen out of the deep freezer. It's slowly getting there, around -8, but it's taking quite some time. I did add the storage bin here, and that was my mistake from last time. So as soon as anything does turn into a rot pile, the auto sweeper should grab it and put it in this garbage can. I've also discovered that apparently we have a cook who is flatulent, because there's no other reason why we'd have this much natural gas floating around. But it's okay because we are slowly pumping all those bad gases out, and hopefully eventually the natural gas will be a part of that. Now, one of the big problems with building all these SPOMs is going to be materials, because I cannot deconstruct the previous SPOMs until these are online. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on all of our materials because there's not many more ores Over here, up at the top of the colony, there's a smattering of copper ore if we really get desperate, but I'd rather wait until the dupes are in suits before we go and core this area out. Here's the first part of our installation of 3 SPOMs, and then I'm going to stack 3 more on top for a total of 6 SPOMs, which is enough oxygen for 180 duplicants. Now, keep in mind, some of these SPOMs will never go away, but some of them are going to have to come offline because we won't have the water throughput in order to sustain that many SPOMs simultaneously. As it is, this is going to be an awkward amount of water supply. In fact, I plan on having 2 SPOMs fed off of 1 water line each. Where I'm going to get that water, I'm not 100% sure. I'll probably start by using this and these 2. Speaking of which, let me get these online. I suppose the next step is just going to be digging right through here. That'll allow all this water to drain in here. Everything looks good. I did remember to move the rails that are transporting all of our batteries because I figured the batteries going through the giant pool of water wouldn't be a good idea. Okay, who dug out that tile? I really hope it wasn't me. I'm pretty sure it wasn't me, but now we're losing all of that water. Please, somebody come build this. I always knew this was going to be a giant mess, but at least it was only going to be polluted water and regular water. Well, not anymore. That's better. Now I'll just dig through these so it'll help it flow a lot easier, and then I can finally get rid of all this. Speaking of which, there's a lot of rail in here I'll be able to recapture. And then let me also start by setting these up. I will just open them up from here. For those you wondering, we are rocking out at 23 frames per second now. So even something like dropping all this water is going to take a few minutes. And yeah, I am aware that we're going to have some issues with bionic dupes coming in here and thinking that they can empty the desalinator, but eventually that will not be a problem. And I remembered, well, the desalinator reminded me that this water is going to be too cold, so I need another solution, and I don't see a big problem with making the solution a liquid tepidizer. There's probably better environmental ways to keep this water nice and warm, but the liquid tepidizer really is pretty economical. It doesn't take a lot of power to do what it needs. So I think I'm going to have to move this around a little bit. More updates on this here in a few. I'm adding in this second row of hydrogen generators, and that is quite literally the last of the gold amalgam. And that is only 3 SPOMs worth. I think in the next row I'm going to build a lot of the batteries and the large power transformers out of iron. The disadvantage is the gold amalgam is the only ore that has that higher overheat temperature. Yeah, when you're building something like a large power transformer, the iron also has the overheat temperature. So I may even have to use steel for our future hydrogen generators, since no other ore has an increased overheat temperature. Or at least none that we have. Now we are able to save on ore by not using heavy watt wire, instead using heavy watt conductive wire and just using lead. Of course, we're down to 19 tons of it too, but there's plenty more where that came from. Let me see if I can find a nice thick pocket of it. What is this? Ooh, another cool steam vent. It seems like Past Echo has already done this quite a bit. Here's some here. We can also grab that. Oh, and then all this delicious stuff here. Same goes for the automation wire. Lead will work here as well. And with the top in place, I can start building more gas pumps. Except for the fact that we're out of gold. There has to be more gold amalgam on this planetoid somewhere. Here's a little bit right here. I will go scoop in and grab it. And we also have to print out a new dupe today, and I think the Sonyar is going to work out well. Of course, Gizmo's identical, and I don't think we have as many gizmos. I don't remember saying that word as many times as I've said Sonyar. Welcome to duplicate number 143. Here's another one for you. Gigo Chad Boy. Good luck, buddy. Stay away from the water. Which this reminds me, I'm eventually going to have to connect the printing pod with our main condo area, because when we print out new dupes, we need to make sure that they go directly into the condo area and not into, say, the industrial sauna. Now, I could do that just by manually moving them every time they're printed, but I'd rather make a nice corridor or something. I don't know, we'll figure it out. Looks like that gold amalgam is going to be enough, at least for the gas pumps. We'll see how long that lasts. We'll switch over to copper for the metal tiles because the temperature threshold doesn't matter for them. Remember, when you're building SPOMs, they can get over 75 degrees, and we're not going to be cooling anything. So as hot as they want to get, we're fine with. Hence the reason we need to make sure they're built with the good materials. This is rather enjoyable. I don't think I've ever built 6 SPOMs at once, and at almost 3,000 hours in the game, I like doing new things. And since there's plenty of oxygen here, we're not asking the dupes to get scalded, nobody's suffocating, just a relaxing walk in the park. Somebody please knock on wood. I've realized the temperature here is mostly getting better, except for the fact that the petrified fossil, if we look at it under the temperature overlay, is still sitting at 256 degrees. And considering it's 4 tons worth of mass, I'm going to excavate this now and then destroy it. Remember, after we complete that story trait, this is the only one that's necessary. And we're going to have a whole lot of gas tanks coming up through here, so I want to make sure this area is nice and chilly. And it looks like we've done it. Our ancient specimen story trait is complete, so we can activate the fossil quarry. We get a nice little critter collar. Isn't that nice? Let's just not imagine the critter that collar used to belong to. But now, if we wanted to, we can take all of our diamond and turn it into fossil. And then we can break down that fossil into lime, but to tell you the truth, I think the diamond's more valuable. A quick break from the video because I wanted to let you know that the Echo Ridge Gaming merch store has been updated with a few new items to include this comfy pillow, a stainless steel bottle, and a couple of new shirts. So if you're in the market for merch and feel like supporting the channel, you can check out the selection at shop.echoridgegaming.com. Back to the video. In anticipation of me having to clear all the gases out of these, I'm going to add another oxygen diffuser and start burning off that algae. That way this whole area is nice and oxygenated. So the only thing we have to do is clear the oxygen out of the hydrogen areas. We will not have to worry about any other sort of gases. So I can instantly start feeding those to suits. Or at least that's the plan. We'll see how that ends up working out. But considering we have 143 dupes on the colony, the oxygen situation doesn't look too shabby. Where it's going to be a little touch and go is when we convert from some of the old SPOMs to the new ones. I'm thinking this guy here was going to end up staying because it's conveniently located next to all of the barracks. We'll probably keep this one for the same reason, and maybe this one because it's the third SPOM on this side of the colony. These two will probably end up going. I'm putting in the last row of hydrogen generators and we are not going to make it. So it looks like the rest of these are going to be made out of steel, which, yes, does pain me a little bit, but we still have 22 tons left and constantly making more. About the most complicated thing about this setup is going to be the gas piping. And the reason why is because, remember, each SPOM has 3 sets of oxygen and some hydrogen filtering around into it. Well, just the oxygen itself, we need enough room for 18 pipes. So what we're going to end up doing is the bottom ones are going to come all the way up and go through all of the SPOMs and come out here. I'm going to figure out how to get through here. Actually, wouldn't it be better if I just sent the bottom parts to the left and the top ones to the right? And then I can make my hydrogen pipes the way they're supposed to be? Yeah, that should probably work. Let me work on this a little bit more. I do already have the hydrogen line for all the excess hydrogen heading up this way through a hodgepodge worth of... What is this? Why are you in there? And then heading up towards the hydrogen line. What did we call it last time? Something fancy. The hydrogen spine. That's right. And I suppose while we're working on that, I can start building the wall and the corridors that the dupes are going to leave out of. And I need to demolish this before I forget. I was going to make all the pipes out of insulated before they end up getting to the suits, but I think that's more material than we want to spend. So I'm just going to make everything out of regular pipes, and we'll end up cooling it in the future. Remember, the oxygen going to the suits doesn't really matter, but all the oxygen going to the environment kind of does. But lucky for us, we have our nice cooling loops around here. The gas piping is nearly complete, and before I show you this, I'm warning you, it's the biggest plate of pasta you've ever seen. That is 18 pipes worth of oxygen. These 3 SPOMs are going out the right side, and these 3 SPOMs are going out the left side. It was the only way I could sort of make it work. I would have preferred, for neatness, the top go out one side and the bottom go out the other. There just wasn't enough room. So I think now it's time to put in some suit docks. Now, I wanted to use mesh tiles because up here is going to be a whole bunch of wheels, and I need that carbon dioxide to sink naturally. But we're down to about 6.5 tons of copper, about 15 tons of wolframite, 5 tons of iron, and a ton of gold, and I still have a lot of suit docks to make. Not to mention, not just the suit docks, but also all the suits. Now, the docks themselves, it's not too bad because I can make it out of iron. Let's do a little bit of that. How many is this? That is 27. How this math is going to come out, I do not know. Well, I guess we do. It's just 27 times 4, which means 108. Oh my goodness. How am I going to get the oxygen lines to them? Now, I'm going to assume, and we may have to adjust in the future, that one line can do 10 suits. And I've thought about this quite some time. If one pipe is able to provide oxygen for 10 duplicants just breathing normally, why can't it do it if you're feeding it all to suits? So that's the theory we're going to be going on. Unfortunately, now it's time for me to actually pipe this up as well. I suppose I can also start making suits, except I can't remember where we ended up putting our suit making machine. Here it is, our exosuit forge. We can't make it out of lead, but we can make them out of copper and iron. Unfortunately, I need 108. Now, granted, I'm going to be able to recover some from here, up here at the Drecos, and a couple of other smaller spots, but, you know, still. Let me start by replacing all these mesh tiles with wolframite. While the dupes are doing that, I'm also trying different designs on how to get the pipes to these docks, and so far this is not going to work. I'm thinking that we take off 2 docks per row, just because I'm going to need the room to get more pipes through. Alright, this one's going to be a little tricky. We're going to have to use a bridge there. And then all we have is this 4th row and 9 pipes to deal with it. I'm going to take the 3 inside pipes and try to hook these up, which leaves us with 6 more pipes to oxygenate the rest of the condominium area. That's not too bad, and 4 SPOMs should be able to feed 100 docks without any issues. Of course, I'm sure I've said something like that before. I also have the liquid pipes almost set here. As we said before, one line's going to feed 8 electrolyzers, which at 10 kilos per second, and each electrolyzer only requiring 1 kilo per second, it's not too shabby. The question is where I'm going to source all the water from, and I don't see a reason why we can't start with this one right here, and this one here. Now, granted, all said and done, once they go through a desalinator, they're not going to be able to provide enough, but for now, this will do. The second line we will grab from here, and I'll make it do a 50-50 split with the existing SPOM structure, because that's not going to be great either. But like I said, we'll try to backfill all these lines when we can. In this last one, we have a water sieve here that looks like it could be used. Again, all temporary. We'll find permanent sources of water for these when we can, and we'll also have them backing up each other. Hopefully, and eventually, we'll have one huge water tank with 3 pumps coming out of it. But for now, this is going to have to do. It should be enough to get the SPOMs going. Well, once I put them on the grid so they can be jump-started. And I don't see a problem with just doing something like that. I do need to finish off the powering from the bottom parts, though. And that's all, once again, going to be lead. Oh, this spine's going to be very mad at me. Did I miss one? I'm sure I did. I'm out of iron. I'm out of wolframite. I've resorted to using uranium ore. Desperate times, desperate measures. I'm sure we'll find some ores in the future and we'll make use of those as well. At the very bottom is going to be some water sieves and carbon skimmers, hopefully getting rid of all that carbon dioxide. And then there's going to be, I'm hoping, a couple of rows of the wonderful canister fillers. How many I need, I have no idea. I suppose I could do every other. Maybe not right here where the dupes are running, but down here. Use normal tiles and just put a couple of airflows in. That might be a better idea. In fact, these are all going to be plastic too. because you get a 50% run speed bonus for running on plastic tiles. In fact, this area here is all going to be plastic tiles too, until they get to the main spine, where eventually I'm hoping to be able to have a nice transit tube system, but quite frankly, we don't have the power footprint for that. Let me give the dupes a few minutes to get this finished, and I'll give you an update here in a few. Oh no, we're already running and getting wrong element damage from where? Oh, because I'm feeding the wrong things. I did not want to start feeding the hydrogen generators. We don't have the ores to replace that with. And in fact, until I know it's all pure hydrogen, all this is just going to get dumped. In fact, we'll do it out in the middle here so it doesn't interrupt our oxygen. That should work out well. And unfortunately, it looks like these are all going to need directional bridges, so I'm going to use this mechanic here. Just imagine that the gas bridge is down here, but instead we can make it like that. And we know that is the excess hydrogen dump. Man, this is a lot of bridges. And it looks like this very first one is already equalized, so I can seal this one up, hopefully without sealing a dupe inside. And now the flow system is working. Well, as soon as somebody comes and finishes this vent. I mean, it even looks cleaner this way. And why aren't any of you going? Oh, because I did not connect you to the power spine. In an effort not to waste too much gas, I am going to try to put all this on a filter. And that way, while we are getting everything equalized, we can still use some of that hydrogen. And that'll be just like that. And hook it up to power. Soon as the dupes finish what I asked them to do. Everything's kind of on. I'm just waiting for the rest of the SPOMs to equalize. I have all the top Atmos sensors, say, above 0, so it'll keep pumping whatever is up here. I need to get these flowing. Why aren't you flowing? Oh, because you can't yet. You're about to make a huge mess. Let's pop some eardrums, shall we? Yep, the dupes aren't going to be happy about that one. I need to get the oxygen flowing so we can continue to try to equalize with the hydrogen. And it would have definitely helped if I would have remembered to reset this to 250, and as such, I lost the equilibrium again. But we're starting to do good things. Slowly. This guy has stabilized, so I am sealing it in. And now I can connect its line, so it'll be adding power to the spine. Eventually, we will flip all these over to be self-sustaining, but for now, every little bit of power will help. Oh, here's this one as well. I need to flip it to 250 and then connect its hydrogen generators. We're going to see stress go up a little bit because I am pumping, well, all the gases into one set area, but that's not too shabby. The juice will most definitely be worth the squeeze. Come on, little guy. You can do it. The big problem we're experiencing is we're getting brownouts because we added so much more to the main power spine. Our main spine now has a potential load of 92 kilowatts. The middle one is now ready. It can be reset. And you can start feeding this spine as well. There's always going to be one little blob that ends up damaging some components. It's the first blob that enters the bridge, but that is not too bad. So now all 3 of the top ones are complete, so I can seal those in. And since these are clean, I can seal them in up here as well. Ooh, not before I disconnect these from the main spine. Voila, on the bottom row, this one is ready. Why are you saying you have no automation wire? Whoopsie daisy. Do let me stop this from pumping for just a minute until I get that automation set. But all the bottom spawns are now coming online. It seems the end is almost here. Apparently, Bendling decided to build it from the other side, and even had time to do a little meditation before I realized they were trapped. Once again, I highly recommend not playing with 143 dupes. Well, the SPOM is complete and everything is sealed in. And we've maintained equilibrium. We have, well, a lot of oxygen heading out. Most of it going to fill some suits. Some of it filling a bunch of canister emptiers here in the condos. And as it stands, all the duplicates are leaving through one of these 4 corridors. We still have a lot of touching up to do. For instance, I'm going to add an entire wheel system in here. Something to deal with all the carbon dioxide that the condo is going to be producing. But for the most part, this was a major milestone for us. For those of you curious, here's the power setup, here's the automation, Liquid's not looking too bad, although I got some updates to do on it as well. But most importantly, we've got more oxygen. And I only have to fill 92 more docks filled with suits. But once we do that, I'll be able to remove all the docks and suits from outside the condo, and we'll finally be able to get into stuff like working down here in the oil biome and start to grab some resources from space. So the condo is almost finished. I'm looking forward to hearing what you thought about this video and to see what you would have done different down in the comments below. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.